Good morning and a warm welcome to everyone joining us here in person and to those of you attending virtually through Facebook Live or Zoom. This is the third episode of monthly ethics seminar series or great job. I got nothing but silence the last time I did that. You're amazing. But yes, what is MESS? MESS is a public service information drive that is a regular mainstay activity by the UP Diliman Research Ethics Board. And it happens monthly. You heard that right. UPD Revs MESS every month. Mark your calendars, do it now. I see your phones and your iPads. I'm watching. But the real reason you should catch every episode is that MESS features lectures and discussions on the responsible and ethical conduct of research, especially research involving human participants. The topics, too, are highly relevant to the current and very diverse research and scholarly needs of UPD and other academic institutions. Are you feeling hyped yet? If not, there's one more reason. I want to let you know that MESS, and as you shall see, is sentient. Sentient to the need, or mindful to the need to be up to date constantly with the latest ethical approaches and standards in the conduct of research. That said, MESS is designed to be informal, conversational. Kapatid, usap tayo. I mean, as far as I can see, nakabatang kapatid kayo. Hence the idea of exchanging insights over lunch. So, yes, you're free to eat, bring out your snacks, and let's feed our minds as we feed our bellies. Mess is actually inspired by the concept of a mess hall. I was very saddened to learn that mess was mess hall and not mess as in me. But now you might be wondering, who is this stunningly unhinged woman speaking in front of me? And the answer to that is, hi, I am Bridget Diaz, your moderator for today's discussion. I was also the moderator for the last discussion. Did you mess me? Hi, can't believe I'm single. Anyway, good morning and welcome to Mess. A few reminders before we begin. Everyone is encouraged to have their lunch while listening to the guest speaker. Kain ng mabuti ha, magtatampo ako. And for our on-site attendees, we have free-flowing water at the back. Stay hydrated. Please take note of your questions. We will have an open forum where you can participate actively in polls, Q&A, and discussions. As for polls, that's mostly for our virtual attendees. But speaking of our virtual attendees, ano yun? Please make sure to keep your microphone muted when not speaking to receive your certificates. For MESS, fill out the evaluation form that will be given at the end of this seminar. Certificates of attendance are given to online participants, and certificates of participation are given to on site participants. For our online attendees, your QR code will be your QR code for the evaluation form will be flashed on the screen near the end of the program and also sent to the Zoom chat box. So please check the Zoom chat box and look at what's being flashed on your screen for the evaluation form. For the on-site attendees, please see your QR code for the evaluation form at the registration area near the breathtaking Miss Flora. So sorry guys, I hear she's already seeing someone. But without further ado, Pierre Bourdieu, who is today's esteemed guest speaker. Dr. J.A. Yakat is an associate professor and currently the chairperson of the University of the Philippines Diliman Department of Psychology. This registered psychologist is a former president of the Pambansang Samahan sa Psikolohiyang Pilipino and currently serves as a member of its board of directors. Most of his publications are in the area of indigenous psychology. His other research interests include national identity, Filipino cultural values, civic participation and volunteering, and human rights concerns. Children's rights and issues such as child abuse, children's participation, child protection, corporal punishment, bullying, and positive discipline, among others, have been also the topic of his researches and many papers. Aside from research, Associate Professor Yakat is also a consultant in training and advocacy, having helped both local and international organizations in contextualizing their work with children and adolescents in the Philippine context. Presenting his lecture on recalibrating ethics reporting in Philippine psychology, a review of the Philippine Journal of Psychology from 2010 to 2021, let us welcome Dr. J. A. Yakat.
So for ano ba, for transparency, J na lang. So ah in- yun, para for accuracy din. Ah, so good morning everyone. Malapit na mag-lunch, no. So as mentioned, you may have your lunch, no, lalo na yung mga nasa virtual natin na kasama, no, virtual mode. Good morning to the on-site participants, no. Very interesting na you chose to spend your lunch, no, dito sa seminar na to. So for more context, this is a project that we did over the pandemic. We started it with the pandemic and then updated our data to include the newer studies that were uploaded in the website of the Psychological Association of the Philippines, which houses the Philippine Journal of Psychology. So this is a collaborative work with other colleagues in the department. So I'd like to recognize them. So um, Ma'am Jang, who is now retired, no, Charm Galano, Liz Inocencio, and Dr. April May Parcon, no, are the collaborators or colleagues who worked with me on this project, no. So since we are all from the Department of Psychology, so we wanted to look into the practice of ethics reporting in the Philippine Psychological Association of the Philippines flagship journal, which is the Philippine Journal of Psychology. So, more specifically in 2018, the PJP released its new set of guidelines to guide contributors to the journal about their ethics, research ethics, uh, transparency. Or, kailangan ba? Yes. Okay, no problem. Okay. So there are some mandated disclosures on particular aspects. No? So if you submit a manuscript to the journal, you have to specify if your study underwent ethics review approval. So if there are any conflicts of interest, procedures that were undertaken to protect human participants. So, for example, informed consent process, the mitigation of risks, and the maintenance of privacy or confidentiality. So, napaisip kami what we wanted to find out, no, what was ethics reporting like prior to these new sets of guidelines. So, tapos, meron bang impact? No? Ano yung naging impact ng guidelines na to the succeeding issues? No? So, how do these guidelines improve ethics reporting moving forward? Okay, so why ethics reporting? No, so many of the series, I think, topics in the series of MES would perhaps talk about the ethics review, ethical issues. No, but why did we elect to focus on ethics reporting? No, so for several reasons. Number one, we felt that existing ethics reporting practices should inform and shape, no, how this impacts, no, our other practices on research, no. So for example, this should be also connected in the way that we report, disseminate, no, findings in our research. So this reporting practices should be aligned with, no, our also writing practices, no, not just in psychology but I think in all the disciplines. So transparency and adequacy of ethics reporting provides additional gauge to assess a study's quality. No? Um, I don't know if you're familiar, no, when you go for ethics approval, hindi lang naman yung ethics yung hindi lang yung ethics yung tinitingnan, pati yung technical quality of the study is also being examined, no? So kasama siya, no? So kaya I think paying more attention to how ethics is reported no in our journals no should also be a way to measure or assess its quality. No? And third, uh, ethics reporting practices in publication should reflect value for research ethics. So kung sinasabi natin sa mga students, no, kapag nagte-training tayo ng research methods, that research ethics is important, then dapat it should have space and value doon sa actual manuscript, no? So kung wala, non-existent or absent, no, yung any ethics section in the studies involving human participants, that tell us something, di ba? So sabi nga natin, pag wala, no, dito absence does not make the heart grow fonder, di ba? So absence means that this particular thing or entity or process is not important no to the scientific endeavor no kaya we chose to focus on ethics reporting and we wanted to know ano daw ba yung practice ng ethics reporting specifically sa psychology no in the Philippines. Okay, what is the ethics reporting landscape like no? So the earliest studies on ethics reporting in psychology were done in the 90s. Tapos very sparse, konti lang yung gumagawa ng mga ito, no? Pero dun sa mga ginagawa, the findings were not very optimistic, no? So low ethics reporting rates in psychology publications were observed globally, no? Sa mga parang yung bilang namin mga 20% lang, no? Yung ganun kababa yung rates of reporting no ng ethics globally no in psychology. Okay. So going back no to our intention, so our study objectives were to describe no what were the ethics procedures reported in the PJP. So focusing on these four aspects no that were in the guidelines, in the informed consent process, the mitigation of risks, privacy and confidentiality, and ethics review and approval. But we were also interested in other aspects of research ethics such as yung vulnerability and participant descriptions. Alam namin sa psych mahilig yung mga researchers to focus on marginalized groups. So we wanted to know no how they are treated no in the reporting. Researcher roles and responsibilities and yung benefits and compensations no. So these are aspects that are being asked of no when you submit your proposals or protocols no for ethics review. So gusto naming malaman, do the researchers or authors talk about these aspects no as part of the ethics reporting when they publish no in a journal. So we're also interested no if there are patterns or trends based on the research type, whether it's quantitative or qualitative. At is there a pattern across years, no? Because we wanted to know what is the impact of the new set of guidelines, no, after 2018. Uh, so the review initially focused on our PJP articles published online from 2010 to 2019, and then we updated it, no, to also include the years 20 to 2021. Hindi pa kasama yung recent kasi wala pa, hindi pa na-upload yung mga new issues online, no. So a total of 139 articles were documented and initially screened for inclusion. And to ensure validity, each article was coded independently. Tapos we cross-check no, our own work no, to resolve discrepancies. And intercoder similarity range from 60% to 90% across pairs. So kapag kunwari wala kaming resolution, we decide by committee or consensus. Yeah. So excluded from the analysis were non-empirical articles, articles without accessible full text copies, and definitely empirical studies that did not involve human participants. Kasi yung research ethics natin, no, yung process natin is designed to protect human participants. No. A total of from the 139, 132 in studies involving human participants were included in the analysis. So 60%, almost 60% are quantitative studies, 40% are qualitative. Tapos sa mga quanti, most of them are correlational. So usually mga surveys or scales using psychological scales. So only 5 studies were non-correlational in design. So experiments, for example. So this gives us a reflection that in the Philippines is quite different methodologically from how psychology is like elsewhere. Kasi sa West, experiments yung majority of the studies that they publish. But in the Philippines, with the flagship journal PJP, most of them are surveys. More than half of the qualitative studies involved or employed a generic design. Ibig sabihin, they did not specify what particular qualitative research design that they used. Okay, so let's go straight to I think for many studies that report their ethics process or procedures, most of them highlight the informed consent process. So what is it like in the PJP? So 60% or almost 61% of the studies reported on the informed consent process, similar to what it is like elsewhere. However, this was more reported in qualitative studies than in quantitative studies, which was kind of surprising. So wala rin kami reason, we don't necessarily have an answer, a specific answer as to why this is so. But what about the informed consent process do the authors report? So 22% are disclosures about research goals. So sinasabi nila they disclose the research goals to the participants. 18% report that the participation was voluntary. 16% talk about protection of privacy and confidentiality, and 12% reported the signing of ICF as part of the informed consent process. The only difference that we saw regarding quali or quanti studies is that quanti studies emphasize voluntariness of the participation more compared to the quali studies. And I think it has something to do with the large scale surveys or the surveys usually that were done. Okay. The next aspect is mitigation of risks. Only 7.6% reported how research risks were mitigated. The few which reported risk mitigation were again qualitative studies. Uh, Risks were reported to have been mitigated by creating additional steps to protect participant anonymity, choosing a data gathering method that will make participants feel more at ease, processing at the end of the interviews. Uh, so very interesting. And again, we don't have an answer as to why most of the survey studies do not necessarily report on risk mitigation. Perhaps they think that surveys are anonymous enough, or carries minimal risk, so they don't report much about this thing. How about privacy and confidentiality? So this is a larger percentage. 30% reported details as to how privacy and confidentiality was protected. So what do they assure the participants of? So there's a general assurance that their answers are confidential, and they will remain anonymous. The use of pseudonyms or removal of any identifiers, and that there is protected access to information and data. PJP requires that if the study underwent ethics review, then they should report it. As expected, very few studies reported having undergone a formal ethics review process because it's not established in all institutions. Not all institutions currently have a formal ethics review process. So that is quite understandable. Uh, a noticeable increase of reporting of ethics review and approval in published studies in 2019. We could think about this as an impact of the new guidelines. But it was not clear to us if PJP is very strict about publishing only those that have ethics review. So that might be one of the reasons. Or that by 2019, there are more institutions that have more formal ethics review processes. So these are the aspects that we were interested in as a research group. So we wanted to talk about, look at vulnerability and participant descriptions. And we observed inconsistencies in the reporting of basic demographic info. Doon pa lang, no? Age, sex, social class, etc. Medyo may inconsistencies, no, in the reporting. May mga studies na complete, no? May mga studies na kulang-kulang yung information about their participants. So, more than half of the studies recruited participants considered as vulnerable, and yet most of the sorry, and 67% of them included minors, no? But only 8.14%, sobrang baba, only 7 studies, no, of the 132, no, explicitly recognized said vulnerability and reported ethical safeguards to protect the participants. Diba? So then this is true for both quali and quanti, no? So there are studies that report collecting responses, survey responses from minors or mga high school students, no? But they did not discuss, no, the potential risks, no, for minors, for example. Of the 8 studies that recognize the vulnerability of the participants, 7 are qualitative. So isa lang yung quanti, no, that had discussed, no, the vulnerability of their participants. No. And we observed that the discussion of the ethical safeguards, no, for vulnerable groups are already embedded in the, so there is no separate section for that. So you will have to find, if you're interested about it, kailangan mo siya hanapin dun sa report. No. In recognition of the vulnerability of their participants, researchers see to it that their chosen method and procedures for data collection are appropriate and ethical in relation to their participants, no. So parang merong assumption na if the method is appropriate, no, then it is already ethical, no. So baka yung iba hindi na nila dinidiscuss because there's that presumption, no. Okay. Very few clarified researcher roles, especially in articles with multiple authors or their qualifications. So when you apply for ethics review, you submit the qualifications of all researchers. No? Kung may research team ka, isasubmit mo yon. But surprisingly, hindi siya nire-report. No? So, as expected, reflexivity, the practice of reflexivity, no, or the examination of researchers' background and positionality, is reported only in qualitative research kasi isang standard practice yun sa quali. No? Uh, However, this is surprisingly not a regular or consistent permanent feature in all qualitative studies. So, only 9%, no? So, yung isang standard sa quali na dapat ay ginagawa ng researcher, halos almost absent in ethics reporting, no, in psychology studies in the PJP. So, yung last na aspect that we looked into was benefits and compensation. So, again, very low rates of reporting. For those that reported on these, details are very sparse, unclear what benefits or compensations were provided. Ako inisip ko baka nakakalito, ang hirap talaga i-determine what would be considered as benefits and what are compensations. No? Usually, student participants are given course credit hours. Very rare that non-student participants are given tokens for their participation. No? Kasi nga, walang information, no, na pinibigay. Okay. So what do these results tell us? No? So una, ethical procedures assumed to be standard research practice are grossly underreported in the PJP articles, no, until 2021. The reporting rates are at levels significantly lower compared to ethics reporting in other countries, no, that we did look at, no, for example, in Canada and in South Africa. The informed consent process is the most frequently reported ethical procedure, but also had the most variability in the type and amount of description or information that were reported. Next most common is the reporting on the protection of privacy and confidentiality. Reporting on the other ethical procedures are very low, no, less than 10%, no. Considering that, well, this was to be expected. These are in the guidelines of PJP, no, but there are two other, no. Pero yung dalawang aspects na yun that were included also had very low reporting rates. Uh, So most concerning for us, no, is the quality of reporting on participant descriptions. Kasi very basic 'yun, no. So inconsistent reporting of basic socio-demographic information. Many studies included minors but did not acknowledge their possible vulnerabilities. Did not report steps that were undertaken to ensure that their rights and welfare are upheld and protected, including but not limited to informed consent. No. Uh, Ethics reporting practices are comparably more detailed in qualitative studies than in quantitative studies. Hindi ko alam kung may tradition or ideological difference when it comes to length, no? Kasi traditionally, qualitative research reports are longer than quantitative studies, no? So, hindi rin namin alam, no? These are questions that we are posing, no? Are ethical considerations more embedded in qualitative design? So because they are mostly usually challenged by quantitative researchers, they had to explain themselves in more detail. Kaya mas mahaba din yung mga explanation. Pag ikaw yung dominant, you don't have to explain yourself, 'di ba? So, taken for grantedness of some ethical procedures in quantitative studies, 'di ba? So, parang baka ang iniisip ng mga nagka-quanti, kami kasi yung in power, 'di ba? So, taken for granted na 'yan, no. There's also I think in this we will have to check in future research reports yung idea na kapag nag-ethics review na kami. So if kunwari, if you report that this study underwent ethics review, no, ang napapansin namin mas lalong sparse yung detail. So it seems that people are assuming because they were approved, ethics na yon, so you don't have to explain, no. So while yung qualitative studies perform a bit better, no, in terms of ethics reporting than quanti. So why is there also underreporting in other qualitative studies? No, we have to really think about that. So one major limitation, because we looked at the studies, no, yung reported studies, guys, we don't know the actual reasons for the omissions or underreporting of the authors. That's why I posed those questions, and we wanted to know kung ganun nga ba yung iniisip ng mga researchers for not including these aspects in their reports, no. So we can only surmise that this may have something to do with beliefs about the ethics compliance is assumed once the article is accepted for publication after peer review. Na peer review na naman eh. So kung may kulang, di ko na yung kasalanan, di ba? So, beliefs that the level of detail in ethics reporting is unnecessary. So, or the striving for brevity, no, due to space constraints. No, but what is very interesting is that most of these publications are online. So, supposedly dapat wala namang space constraints, no? That would be understandable if they were printing it, no? But most of the these are all online, no? So research on authors' views about ethics reporting may be warranted, no? So if you're interested to study this particular aspect, no, or when we do our own, no, gusto niyo sumali, no, you are most welcome to do so, no? Okay. So there are almost negligent patterns across time, except articles published after the 2018 guidelines, no, from 2019 to 2021. We observe that they are generally more detailed in their reporting of ethical procedures. But again, there is considerable inconsistency, no? So may variation noong scope at detail. So hindi pa rin uniform, no, na sinusunod yung guidelines, no? So are we seeing the early impact of the new guidelines? You know, it's difficult to conclude that, no? But to a certain extent, we agree as a team that it has helped a lot, no? Uh, Again, no, para masabi natin na may impact talaga, we should see consistent levels of reporting, no, across all the studies. But since wala pa, no, so baka kailangan din yung PJP o editor should also ensure that that consistency should be present across all the studies that are published after 2018. Okay. But we think that the new PJP guidelines show promise in potentially improving ethics reporting in areas explicitly stated in the policy. I'm not very sure if other journals also have very explicit ethics reporting guidelines, no, like the PJP. No, that's also something worth looking into. But we invite that more discussion and reflection be undertaken on the following. No, reporting on other ethical procedures not included in the PJP guidelines, such as yung vulnerability, no, yung discussion on vulnerability. Coming up with specific guidelines for authors, editors, and reviewers on what can be considered adequate ethics reporting. Nevertheless, the adoption of these ethical guidelines is a significant step in the right direction. No? As an output of this particular project, we drafted a set of ethics reporting guidelines. No? So, na present din namin sa ibang mga journal editors. No? So, yeah, I think that ends my presentation. Maraming salamat, no, and thank you for spending lunch with us, no, today. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, Associate Professor Yakat, for that insightful presentation. It is now time for the open forum. The floor is open for both our in-person attendees and for our virtual audience to send in their questions. But of course, we'll start with our favorite, the in-person attendees. Any questions? That was a really interesting talk, and I saw some of you nodding. No pressure, guys. Like I said, I'm unhinged and I'm here. So, anybody? Someone's taking notes. Oh, of course. UPD Reb Chair, Doc Cora de Ungria. Yes po.
Sir, when you talk about iba sir, natural sciences kami. We in for the basic for the bio papers, etc. We're actually not required. I don't know what type of ethics reporting. Basta na nilalagay lang namin has been cleared, has been reviewed by the research ethics committee. Tapos of course we do the information that's needed, the number of samples, etc. Pero yung mga vulnerability hindi nire-report. When you were talking about ethical reporting, more or less, can you explain a bit more?
Yeah. Why bakit kami nag-focus on ethics reporting, no? So all of us are teaching research methods courses. So in psychology, all the research methods courses may research ethics components, 'yon, no. But also yung mga students also learn about ethics not just in the research methods classes, but also when they consume the scientific publications, 'di ba? And yung argument namin, dapat methodology yung isa sa pinakamalaman na section, no, ng isang report na not just the results or yung unreasonable obsession with the lit review, no. So dapat yung methodology yung pinakamalaman because that reflects your science, 'di ba? Yung method section, no. And that includes ethics, no. So if research ethics is about the protection of human participants, tapos yung tinitingnan namin yung educative role ng mga scientific publications, no.
Sinasama niyo sa methods yung for example, what sort of precautions you made
Yes,
in terms of protecting vulnerable
yes.
groups?
Kasi how will your students know what the standards are, 'di ba? Aside from what you are teaching them, dapat consistent din 'yun sa practice ng mga actual scientists, right? So, ano yung matututunan nila 'pag sinasabi magbabasa sila ng report at masasabihin lang, pumasa siya sa ethics review, 'di ba? So, how would they know? Did you really, no? O what were the safeguards that were made, no, to protect? Ah, yun po. Yun yung argument namin, no? So, why should we really pay attention to ethics reporting just beyond reporting that this has underwent a formal process? So, yun po yung ano namin. Lalo na, what was bothersome is that many of the studies involve vulnerable groups. So, yun po.
We're off to a great start. Sir, maybe you'd like to ask a question?
Yeah, magandang tanghali. Alex Tamayo sa Plaridel Journal.
Hi, hello, sir.
Very interested ako dito kasi sa Plaridel, ganyan din yung gusto kong mangyari, yung merong ethics reporting guidelines. Although meron na kaming ethics statement, research ethics statement, nire-require namin ito. Gusto ko pang katulad nung observation mo, marami kaming nakikita na underreporting talaga. At I agree with what you said na since ang audience din naman natin kuminsan is mga students, ganun, part of their research methodology dapat very clear yung ethics. Now, ang question ko is what are you doing to address yung lack of information of disclosure? Do you communicate to the authors to include this sa to include certain things sa kanilang ethics statements or whatever? Kasi ako ang ginagawa ko ay nag-i-email ako sa kanila when I can't see a ethics statement, nag-i-email ako sa kanila asking them so to include it in their do you do the same? Do
Well,
you what other things methods do you do to improve yung research disclosure nila, ethics disclosure nila?
Sige po.
Thank you.
Dahil we are not members of the PJB editorial board, no? So hindi po kami 'yon. But we did present itong report namin and shared with them we developed a set of ethics reporting guidelines. So we shared it with them. Binigay din namin 'yon sa iba't ibang mga every time that we present. So sinesend din namin yung ethics reporting guidelines that we develop, no, based on our findings. So mga suggestions to journal editors. Tapos hopefully that the journal editors also discuss it, no. Kasi po kami wala kami 'yon. But I think yung isang impact sa amin individually as research team members, pag nagre-review kami ng mga peer review article, pag nagpe-peer review kami ng mga manuscripts, kasama yun sa hinahanap namin. So yun po yung isa, no, na ginagawa namin to address. Lalo na po, yung pinaka-ano namin ay yung participant vulnerability. So very consistent kami kung kami yung nagre-review ng manuscript. So yun po. Pero I think there should be some discussion at the level of the journal editors. No, yung mga editorial boards na meron sa Pilipinas, no, hindi lang siguro sa psychology. At I think good news po 'yun for Plaridel, no, na merong ganon, no, and to make it more explicit. Yun po.
Amazing. Next question.
Hello, my name is Sean Cruz, and I would like to ask on the aspects of low percentages in ethics reporting. Does that not affect the validity and, let's say, usability of the researchers with low percentage of reporting? And another question would be, uh, as you shown in your conclusions, it would seem that most researchers in PJB, they have a sort of mindset that research ethics is unnecessary for the sake of brevity is overlooked? And should we not address that for, say, by, for example, if we conducted a special ethics report training, not exactly on teaching the methodology and uh, proper procedures, but on the mindset, on how to, on the outlook of ethics reporting for researchers?
So there are parang two layers to sa question. I'll address the first. Does it tell us something about quality automatically if there is ethics reporting, under reporting? Not necessarily. No. So it's possible. I would like to believe that since well, many of them are for those, especially for those that have reported um, having been approved by a formal ethics review, that the study was done ethically. No, so I would assume that there was that. No, but it's in the reporting that was lacking. No? So that's not always a one-to-one correspondence. No? What we are advocating for is that the kind of level or quality, no, or transparency that that we do when we subject our manuscripts or proposal for ethics review, no, would be the same, no, when we disseminate, no, our whole study, including the results. No. Again, because I think there is that educative role or value of the scientific publications. No. So for many of us, no, rely on. We want to see, for example, we want to know how particular methods are done in the real world, no, or in practice. We, no, examine, no, we consult the literature. So that is also how we learn, no, additional learning yun. So if those information are not present, 'di ba? So paano mo 'yung tuturo sa pero hindi mo siya nakikita sa practice, 'di ba inconsistent 'yon, no? So 'yun 'yung that is one of the main reasons, no. The other things is that those are just our uh or trying to find a sense of why what accounts for the underreporting. So and I listed down no possible reasons. No, again, no, these are future questions that we would like to ask authors. No, so we are not claiming that there is already that mindset. No, based on a few people that we know. No, but we don't know. No, that's why we want to ask authors. No, what is the reason preventing people, no, to be more transparent about the ethics process in their reports. No? So I think that is one thing, no, that we also want to ask. No? So we're not assuming that that this is a dominant mindset. No, but that could be well, we have observed that some people have it, no, that mentality, but we're not claiming that all, no, authors or scientists or researchers have that. Thank you for that question.
Indeed, thank you. Anyone else? Comments?
Follow up lang. I think ang challenge ito, and I agree with, I support your statement that the editors of Philippine journals at least, or even UP can start to discuss. Ang challenge po kasi with bio and natural sciences journals, there's limitation of length.
Space.
Length. But I think a potential solution to, mahilig naman kami sa supplementary eh. So it is possible that and that is something that we could propose
Yeah.
with OVCRD and the journals here. Kung talagang may issue sa length, in terms of the main content of the paper, then prescribe the first supplementary to be the ethical reporting.
Yeah. In the guidelines that we develop, I think it doesn't have to be very long. But if, for example, in the guidelines for an editor, you give out contributor guidelines, no, what you really want to ask, no, or what you want to be included in the report. So additional aspects can be included in that. No, and again, it might vary depending on the discipline. no? So if I think there are possibly a variety of considerations depending on the discipline, no? So for psychology, since especially the interest now is on mental health, no? And either those at risk or those who are undergoing mental or having mental health conditions, no, are of interest. Then therefore, participant vulnerability should be an important aspect of ethics reporting. So it could be a case to case or discipline to discipline basis. No, yeah.
Wonderful questions and energy from our in-person participants. We now give a shot to our Zoom participants. First question: what are some ethical considerations when we allow the researcher himself or herself as a participant of the study? Yung researcher mismo po ay isa sa mga participant of the study.
Yeah. So there are methods, for example, in anthropology, autoethnography. No? So they include themselves as part or most likely focused, no, on their own experience. Definitely, there are some ethical concerns or considerations. Yung question kasi parang research methods ka. So, ethics pa ba? Hindi. Siguro yun yung I will be technical about it, no. There are methodological issues, no. Sa lahat ng mga methods natin. Walang research method na walang limitation. So there are all research methods have their own limitations. Are these limitations automatically ethical or no in nature? Ano yung babalikan natin? Ano ba yung ibig sabihin natin ng ethics, 'di ba? Ito yung mga practices that could render possible harm to all those who are involved, 'di ba? So a researcher is part of the research process, no? Kaya meron tayong yung protection natin also includes the researcher, no? So kung ano man yung sa tingin ninyo na would put the author himself or her or themselves at risk, no, could be an ethical concern. So ano yung mga yon? Pwedeng at risk for exposure, 'di ba? Yung mga ganyan. Those are the ethical risks. Iba pa yung validity risks, 'di ba? Those are quality, no? Yun nga and I think that is also another issue that ethics review boards have to contend with, no? Ano ba yung limits or scope ng ethics review? Are you assessing technical issues, no, issues about the validity or quality, no, of the information, no, brought about by the process? No, those are the things that you assess sa isang technical review, no? Or if you're an ethics review, should you just focus on, and ako sa akin logically yon, focus on the processes that might render all people involved in the research, no, to certain risks. Okay? Pero syempre ang artificial noong ano na 'yon, no, noong demarcation na 'yon between the technical and the ethical aspects, no. Pero kailangan lang natin maging malinaw, no. I think this question that was posed is really more technical or methodological, no. Pero if I answer it from an ethics perspective, no, think about what particular, risks, no, to the person, to the researcher involving doing research on themselves, 'di ba? So yun yung mga ethics concerns doon. Yeah. I hope
Very
I was able to answer that question. Parang comprehensive exam question.
interesting. Very interesting. Sir, for the next question, we have another one from Zoom. What do you suggest for thesis and dissertations? Should there be a separate section for ethics reporting, or the discussion be integrated in the different parts of the methods section?
So I will speak for yung experience namin sa Department of Psychology, no. Yung the process that we do is that integrated yung technical review namin is integrated with the ethics review. So when you propose, well, baka si Dr. Quiñones is in the audience. Is really the best person to speak. So ako yung mas practice, siya yung nasa policy, no. So what we do in the department is that when you propose, no, a thesis proposal or dissertation proposal, so you have an advisor na, and most likely yun yung mas technical, no. And then there is another member of the panel na most likely would also focus on the more technical aspects of your proposal, no. Then you submit the proposal together with the ethics application to the our ethics review board, no, in the college, no. So and then they will review it and then send a member, a representative, no, to the panel of the proposal defense, no. Kaya integrated yung ginagawa sa department namin. So kaya yung student, no, receives feedback on the technical aspects of the study or proposal and the ethics aspects of the proposal, no. Tapos after that, any revisions na gagawin on technical at ethics, kailangan pumasa siya doon before they do the data collection, no. So that's how we do it. Is it separate? So process-wise, it's integrated, no. So we do not necessarily have a separate ethics section, no. Ang usually embedded na siya sa methodology, no. So yung methodology section nandun na pati yung ethics na component dapat nare-report siya sa methodology section, no. Other aspects, kunwari conflict of interest, no, pwedeng attachment na lang yon, yung mga ganyan. Some also include that in the ethics section, in the method section. I think importante yon kasi ano ba yung gusto nating i-communicate, no? Kino-communicate ba natin that the technical and the ethical are different or are they integrated, 'di ba? So dapat yung process mo din would reveal that, no. Parang UP Manila for some reason separates it, no. Iba yung technical review at iba yung ethics review. Ang kino-communicate nun, magkaibang proseso 'yon, 'di ba? Pero hindi ba dapat lahat tayo, 'di ba? Parang ang nangyari kasi parang ay may ethics expert, 'di ba? Parang ganun yung dati, no? If we separate it. So what we do is that we integrate it, no? So pag nag-defend ka, handa ka dapat as a student, no, to defend the technical aspects of your proposal and the ethical aspects as well. So yun po yung ano. Yun po yung well, ang tawag po na Alt-H, ako lang to ha, no. So huwag niyo iisipin na statement yan ng department or ng aming college ERB, no.
Thank you again, sir. Next question. What are the bounds of rules regarding ethics requirement prior to the conduct of the research in cases of deceptive studies, especially in the field of psychology?
Well, babalikan ko lang yung results, no. What we can see doon sa 132 studies, only 5 are non-correlational at not all of them are experiments, no. So at least doon sa ano, very few do experimental work, no. So kung tara in terms of practice of yung ethics na review, sobrang konti ng experiments. But is there deception? Not all the time, no. Iano ko lang siguro, i-dispel ko lang yung idea na kapag experiment, lahat ay may deception, no. Hindi naman necessarily, no, ganon. Actually nga, kung maglalagay ka nun, automatically, yung scrutiny is more, ano nga ba, more intense, kasi tama ba ako? Pag may mga ganon, pag may deception, magpo-full board ba yun? Not necessarily. Pero kumpara sa more straightforward, 'di ba? Parang imagine ninyo, well ako yun yung tinuturo ko sa mga students ko sa experiment, no. Kung hindi kailangan mag-deception, 'di ba? Huwag niyong gawin. Alam naman namin yung mga estudyante namin before na-fascinate sila, no, sa deception, no. So, well, hindi ko alam kung yun yung ibig sabihin dito, pero yung deception in psych is that when you you are not completely transparent, no, about certain aspects of your experimental design to the participant, no, na bumabangga siya doon sa informed consent process natin, no, which as no that the participants have information enough for us, no, to enough for them to decide to continue with the participation in the study. So for example, there's that notion because human participants are active agents. So there's a tendency when they go into an experimental condition that they tend to think about or they try to guess what the study hypotheses are, no, and then act according to those particular guesses, no. Or if, for example, they know of what your particular goals are in the research, they will tailor their behaviors according to, no. Hindi naman palagi. If you think, no, that particular information would change, no, the behavior, hindi muna agad sasabihin. So there will be a debriefing session after. So that the debriefing is the procedure, no, that allays yung risks of the deception. Di ba nagtaas ka ng kamay? Oh.
Magandang hapon po. Diwa Quiñones po mula rin po sa psychology at saka sa CSSP. Dagdagan ko lang po yung nabanggit na ni Professor Yakat. So I think yun nga, first pagdating doon sa rules when it comes to conducting deception or including deception in your research. Sa psychology, ang una talaga ay kailangan gagamit ka lang ng deception
Okay.
kung wala ng ibang paraan para makuha mo yung or magawa mo na na valid yung research mo, no? So other situations hindi yon katanggap-tanggap, no? Meron din na ilang guidelines, no, na pinagbabatayan kung paano nga tayo magde-decide kung pwede yung deception. Yung isa dito ay yung Windsor Deception Checklist, no? Yung Windsor Deception Checklist, parang yun, yes or no question lang siya. Tapos magagabayan ka nun kung yun nga, yung deception ba na binabalak mo sa research mo ay kailangan talaga or hindi. Kapag hindi siya pumasa doon, so yun, di ba? Dapat meron kang proper acknowledgement doon at i-adjust mo yung design ng pag-aaral mo, no? Pero yun, isa lang yun ha. Hindi ko sinasabing ito lang yung pwede nating gamitin. Ang importante parate, 'di ba? I-appropriate natin doon sa pag-aaral natin, doon sa mga inaaral natin, yung guidelines na 'to. Hindi dapat siya yung diretsong patong na lang ng guidelines na 'to. So yun po. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Sir Diwa at Sir Yakat. Good to have both of you here. Next question. What is your insight regarding the disturbance fee and other related fees for participants? How are they ethical and at times unethical?
I think yung dapat sumagot nito yung mga nasa ethics review boards natin. Nandito si Ma'am Conrad. Again, Alt-H. Well, kunwari, pag nagre-review ako, any discussion on fees, ako, pag nagre-review ako ng manuscripts for ethics approval, yung tinitingnan ko ay gaano siya kalaki, no? Yung ano nga yung technical term na inducement, no? Dapat yung fees na binibigay ay hindi siya makaka-interfere dun sa decision making ng participant, no, tungkol sa participation niya, no? So kung kunwari sasabihin mo may 10,000 ka, no, bibigyan mo yung participant. So parang hindi na sila halos magdadalawang isip, no, na mag-participate, no? So yung magiging question nun, genuine pa ba, no, yung informed consent, no, yung pagsabi niya ng payag siya. Eh ang laki-laki nung pera na sasabihin mo bibigay mo sa kanya. So yon, ang tawag doon ay inducement, no? Pero siyempre, may mga pagkakataon na we have to really think about the realities, no, of our participants. Kunwari, because you ask them to participate, they lost working hours, tapos daily rates sila, no? Ibig sabihin, hourly rates sila. Tapos bibigyan mo sila ng load, no, na 50 pesos, parang gano'n. Parang hindi yata commensurate yon doon, no? So yon, no, yun yung ilan sa mga issues. Hindi ko siya masasagot ng absolutely, no, or very specifically, kasi we have to know the particular context, no? At ano yung mga general principles? Ako, I work on that, no? Ano ba yung mga general principles, no? So una, that hindi dapat ganun kalaki, no, na nawalan na yung participant ng agency to really decide, no, na gagawin niya to. So parang ano, gagawin ba niya ito kung wala yung pera? Parang gano'n, no? Kasi nakaka-interfere yun sa informed consent process. Pero at the same time, we have to also consider ano ba yung loss, no, niya, no? Lalo na kung kunwari hindi sila mga estudyante, nagtatrabaho sila, no? Ano yung actual loss noong participation nila doon sa pang-araw-araw na buhay? Yun nga, yung disturbance, no, na fee. Ikatlo din na we have to consider yung mga kung sino ba yung researcher, mga estudyante ba yon, no? So kung mga estudyante ay kailangan ba sila maglabas, no, noong sarili nilang pera, meron ba silang ganong budget, no? So yun yung mga ilan, I think, that we have to consider. So it's really difficult to answer, no, this question, 'di ba, ng black and white lang, no? So hindi ko alam kung cop out answer yon, no, but yon. So, sige, sagutin. When is it unethical? Yun nga, magsiset ka lang ng context or fee na walang ganong klaseng considerations, no? So, or parang kumayaman ka, parang magbabagay-way ka lang ng pera, no, para sa, no, para dumami yung participants mo. Yun, I think that's grossly, well, unacceptable, no? Yon. Tapos consider also yung capacity noong researcher. Kung estudyante yon, require mo ba, no, na sila yung magbabayad halimbawa. So, yun sa tingin ko, no, yung mga considerations.
Thank you for your insights, sir. Nakatulong po yun sa akin. Next question. How do we know that researchers are comprehensively disclosing ethical matters instead of just reporting the bare minimum just to be able to comply with the requirement?
Okay. Pag sa journal ba ito, no, if you're asking about the journal, actually, most of the guidelines, parang minimum, no? So, yun nga yung nakakalungkot, no? Minsan, may minimum ka na, pero pag chinek mo, hindi pa nga yun, hindi pa nga natutugunan yung minimum, no? So, yung mga guidelines naman, no, pinipili din naman yan ng mga editors, for example, nang sa tingin nila, ito yung adequate, no, para to maintain a certain level of quality of that journal, 'di ba? So yun. So ibig sabihin, hindi pag naabot mo yung minimum, hindi naman sa pangit yung quality, no? Kasi sinet yan, no, according to particular standards, no? Yung mas nakakalungkot ay meron ng standards na minimum tapos subpar, no, yung ibibigay, 'di ba? So yun yung hindi. Can we know that researchers are comprehensively disclosing? If we're talking about ethics review, well, makikita yan ng panel, kaya nga may magre-review, no? Minsan may mga insights yung panel members na ikaw as researcher hindi mo nakita. At yun yung value of the ethics review process, no? That there are some aspects or insights na wala sa or hindi mo agad makikita na makikita ng iba, no? Yun yung tulong nun, no? But if we're talking about ethics reporting in journal publications, malaking bagay talaga yung guidelines ng editors, no, dito, no. So kasi yung editors yung may final say, no, doon sa iba. Ang yun nga yung isa na pinopropose namin, dapat meron ding guidelines for the reviewers, no, to also check for ethics reporting, no. Kasi ang suspecha namin, 'pag nag-peer review, ang mga instructions lang is on the technical aspects of the report, not on the ethics aspect. Kaya hindi siya nababantayan. No? So, yun.
Thank you, sir. Once again, we move on to the next one. What might underreporting indicate about researchers' assumptions about standard ethical practices?
Ah, well, yun nga, parang posible, it's possible that some do not value these aspects, kaya hindi nila sinasama. No? So, but again, that is what we want to investigate further. No? Ano nga ba yung attitudes or perceptions ng mga nagsasubmit ng mga papers nila about ethics reporting? How much do they value it? No? And how much they are willing to be transparent about the ethics procedures, no, that they did. No? Yun yung isa sa tingin ko. Number 2 is also how lax we are about, no, yung matching the how stringent the ethics review process is. Tapos pag publication na, hindi na siya gano'n, no. So yun, no, yun yung isang nasa-suggest sa akin ng underreporting. So then we always go back to ano ba yung value kasi ng research ethics? Oh. Kasi kung compliance lang siya to procedures, ganun talaga yung magiging attitude ng mga tao. But if we see that yung ethics has value, 'di ba? At integral siya doon sa scientific enterprise, you will pay attention to it. Hindi lang doon sa pag nag-submit ka ng proposal, kundi hanggang sa pag nag-disseminate ka, no? Then it becomes embedded in your practice. Ang problema nga ngayon, feeling ko wala pang gano'n, no? Hindi pa, hiwalay pa siya na proseso. It's not integrated or ingrained, no, in the way that we do our science. No? Kaya I'm sure, 'di ba, maraming nagrereklamo, mga researchers, additional ano lang siya, legal compliance lang 'yan, no, procedural, cheche-bereche, no? Pero if we go back to the heart of research ethics, it's all about protecting human participants, 'di ba? So, dapat yung science natin, 'di ba, does not harm people. Tayo din included doon as researchers. So, kung kunwari naniniwala tayo doon, yung practice natin of yung attitudes natin about ethics, no, ay hindi lang makikita kapag hiningan ka, no, noong requirements for your protocol to be accepted, no. Dapat hanggang sa dulo, pag nag-report ka, nag-disseminate ka, you are also serious about your research ethics. No. So, yun lang yung tingin ko doon. No?
Okay, second to the last question. Do cultural differences affect what is ethical in psychological research?
Wala kaming data, hindi naman kami nag-compare cross-culturally. Pero yung nakita nga namin globally, mababa yung mababa yung reporting rates, no. Mas mababa lang yung sa Pilipinas, no. Pero generally mababa. So, what does it say globally? Yun nga, there is not much value, no, to ethics reporting as a practice. So, wala masyadong cultural differences siguro pa. Di ba? What is ethical? Okay, sorry. Ang hirap din sagutin nun. Mas nakikita ko pa nga disciplinal, yun. Kagaya ng nabanggit ni Ma'am Cora kanina, no, yung mas disciplinal pa than cultural, kunwari, that there are aspects that are more important for particular disciplines, no, than others, no. Pero sa human sciences kasi, dahil ang human participants are front and center in our research, 'di ba? So, baka dapat mas importante 'yon, no. We really pay much attention to it. Hindi ko alam, baka si Diwa nga yung makakasagot dahil siya yung nagre-review ng napakaraming protocol, no? Oo.
Magandang hapon po. Siguro hindi mainly base doon sa mga nire-review ng ERB ng CSSP, pero pagdating sa psychology halimbawa, yung isa sa mga leading na mga organizations ay yung IUPSIS, no? International Union of Psychological
Societies.
Sciences for Societies, no? At doon sa kanilang guidelines, no, tinutukoy nila na kailangan nating pahalagan yung pagkakaiba-iba ng mga kultura, kung saan nakasituate yung psychology na inaaral natin, at bahagi ng acknowledgement and recognition na yon ay yon, kailangan na pagdating dun sa pagtansya ng kung ano yung ethical at hindi, nakabata yun dun sa mga kultura na inaaral natin. So dun pa lang makita natin na oo, merong cultural differences, no, at yung ethics ay nakabase dun sa pagkakaiba-iba natin ng kultura, at sa ganung lagay, 'di ba, pagdating sa pag-design din ng research natin, no, kailangan merong proper na pagbibigay ng pagpapahalaga dun sa kultura na yon, para alam natin kung yung research ba natin ay nagiging unethical na or magba-violate na ng mga standards dun sa lipunan na yun or sa kultura na yun.
Yung isang specific na halimbawa na sinasabi ni Diwa, naalala ko nung dati pa na may isa kaming protocol na ni-review. And it could be a cultural difference of what is ethical or not. Usually yung global would require a signature, no, for informed consent, no? So, pero pero doon sa isang protocol or sa isang research study, yung mga participants nila ayaw pumirma, no? So, either hindi sila pumipirma, hindi illiterate sila, yung mga ganyan, no? So, ano yung gagawin, no? So, hindi kaya yung mas culturally sensitive na mechanism ay ano yung gusto nila, no? So, pumayag sila ng thumbprint, 'di ba? No, kasi ano ba yung gusto sabihin, no? Kailangan lang ng evidence, 'di ba? Meron tayong patunay na sumasang-ayon sila, no? At naintindihan nila, no? So, dun sa mga grupo na for some reason ayaw nila 'yon, no? Ayaw nilang pumirma. Merong ibang alternative at dapat tanggapin 'yon, no, as siguro legitimate, no? Acceptable 'yon, yung for that, no? So yun yung isa, pero ang karamihan ng experience ko ay appropriateness according to discipline. Parang at dito nagkakaroon ng clash, no? Yung biomedical, very biomedical versus the social science or the human science. So there are a lot of differences, no? So at baka yung what are the standards might be different across disciplines. No? At baka yung sensitive way to go about it is to recognize that diversity, no? So yun, no? Well, dahil nasa akin yung mic, no, I will say this, no. I think one of the pressing problems for us in the social sciences is that the ethics review process is basically biomedical in nature, no? And that they are imposing particular disciplinal standards in the way that we assess, no, yung ethicality of the studies that we have, no? So yun, no, I think that's sabihin na natin, no, front and center, merong ganong imposition na nangyayari, which I think is not the intention, no, going back to the heart of the intention. It's really the protection of the human participants doon sa mga iba't ibang mga disiplina, no? And I think, 'di ba, dapat yung processes din natin are aligned doon sa nature of the different disciplines that we have. So, yeah.
Thank you, Associate Professor Yakaf Andler. And again, it's also great to have Dr. Diwa Quiñones, Chair of the College of Social Sciences and Philosophy Ethics Review Board, here with us. Maybe we could hear your thoughts again with this next question. Second to the last or last? Okay, speaking of deception, the last question earlier was not the second to the last. This is the penultimate question. How might a lack of reporting reflect researchers' perceptions of risk in psychological research? For example, assuming the studies pose minimal risk or neglecting to report safety measures.
Again, so yung clarification, yung lack of reporting does not automatically, 'di ba, reflect yung parang na yung study ay nineglect itong mga ito, no? Lalo na doon sa mga studies that underwent formal ethics approval. Ang assumption namin, alam nila yon kasi they were asked, no, about these particular things. Hindi lang nila na-report, no? So ang simple lang diyan, kunwari dun sa guidelines sabihin, no? So kung about risks, for example, PJP may guideline siya about risk, no? So kung kunwari nagpa-ethics review ka at sinabi yung category mo ay no risk or minimal risk, report mo lang. Tapos at siguro pwede mo i-qualify, no? Bakit ito minimal risk? Again, we are coming from educative. For students or for sino man, so this is an example of a study that passed ethics review classified as minimal risk for this particular reason, 'di ba? So that's additional information, no, for those who are consuming, no, psychological or our scientific literature. That's our point, 'di ba? So kasi hindi natin alam ano-ano nga ba, no? Sinasabi ng research textbooks natin ganito. Pero how is that in practice? And the research literature ay yung nagre-reflect ng practice na meron tayo. Kaya nga kapag kulang-kulang yung nire-report natin sa practice, 'di ba? Hindi kumpleto yung appreciation natin of the scientific enterprise, no? And that's our main point why we focus on this aspect.
Thank you, sir. Last question. Should there be specific additions to the basic informed consent form in psychological studies with increasing risk on the participants of the research depending on the current political environment? Pag may lumipad sa Netherlands. Ganyan. Consider change in the political environment during data collection and study publication.
Yeah. I'd like to believe that the panel members who comprise, no, yung mga nasa ethics boards, take that into consideration, no? Pag nag-a-assess sila, no, kunwari sa ethics review boards, no. So taken into consideration yung mga yon. So kasi nga saan manggagaling, no, yung mga feedback nila, no? Kaya depende din sa ano yung tingin nila about what is risky and what is safe at that time, or kasi yan titingnan mo in principle ganyan yan, pero ano din yung current context. So I think if your ethics review board is doing their job, kasama yon sa dapat na tinitake into account.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Associate Professor Yakat, for your wonderful insights, the audience in person and through Facebook Live or Zoom for participating. That marks the end of our open forum. But to really express our gratitude here to our speaker, we'd like to call on UPT Rev Chair, Dr. Cora, Dr. Cora de Ungria, for the awarding of the Certificate of Participation. Sorry, Certificate of Appreciation. Really worried about Dr. She can do it. She's a fighter. I know. We know.
Okay, we award the Certificate of Appreciation, sir. I'm Dr. J.A. Yakat for exemplifying his expertise and contributing invaluable knowledge as resource speaker on recalibrating ethics reporting in Philippine psychology, a review of the Philippine Journal of Psychology from 2010 to 2021, during the third episode of the 2025 UPD Rep Monthly Ethics Seminar Series, Etikainan at Etika Alaman, conducted on the 13th of March here at NSRI. Maraming salamat, sir. I learned a lot. I hope you did too. So, very much. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you sa mga nandito sa room.
Thank you po. Finally, we would like to thank everybody, especially Associate Professor J.A. Yakat for his invaluable insights on ethics reporting in Philippine psychology. We would also like to thank, again, our attendees for having a discursive lunch with us. Did you guys enjoy that? Was that delicious for both the stomach and the brain? I thought it was. I thought it was pretty good. Given that, we'd like you to check out the next episode of Mess on April 10. Once again, Mess April 10. Mark your calendars. Goodbye and see you. Follow UPD Reb on social media at UPD Reb on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn, and at reb.upd on Instagram. Subscribe to UPD Reb's YouTube channel at UP Diliman Reb for the recorded episodes of Mess. Yes, you can replay all of my bad jokes as many times as you want. Thank you, everyone, for making Mess an incredible success, and belated happy birthday to Christine Reyes. Right, one more time. This is very, very important. Before we leave, please scan or, yeah, access the evaluation form through this QR code. You may also. Okay, good. Okay. Ignore this. This is a joke. Again, another act of deception. This is only for the online participants. Online participants, the one that's flashed on the screen, that's your QR code. Again, online, on screen. Got it? Okay. On-site participants, you can find your evaluation form again with the breathtaking Flora, Flora Tagiling right over there, registration area, also stuck on the door. So QR code there. Again, thank you very much. Don't hesitate to ask us for questions. We hope to see you again. Kailangan itong malinis. Iba na